Awesome. All right. Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to this afternoon's event. Patrick Lejtenyi checks in with Parnian, Pourtaherian, and Jochen Jaeger, where we will hear about their recent paper on greenbelts. We are streaming on YouTube live from Concordia University's fourth space, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Jaeger, Montreal. At Fourth Space, we collaborate with our university community to activate research projects and initiatives in development across the university. We are running this event as a live-streamed meeting, so we welcome your comments and questions with a raised hand or in the chat. Feel free to jump in at any point. Have a great conversation, everyone. Over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Jacqueline. So Jochen Jaeger, Associate Professor in the Department of Geography, Planning and Environment, and Parnian Pourtaherian, who received her master's, her MSc last year from the same department. Welcome to Fourth Space. And thank you for taking the time to discuss your paper. The paper that we're going to be discussing is titled How Effective Are Greenbelts at Mitigating Urban Sprawl? A comparative study of 60 European cities. It was published in the journal Landscape and Urban Planning. So thanks again for joining us. Now the paper looks at the effectiveness of greenbelts in 60 European cities, 30 of them that do have greenbelts, 30 without. So having looked at these various kinds of data and measurements, according to your research, how effective overall were greenbelts in mitigating urban sprawl in these cities?
Thank you so much for your question and thanks for inviting us. Well, by looking at greenbelts in the European cities, our overall conclusion was that the greenbelts were largely effective in controlling urban sprawl in pretty much most of the cities that we looked at, in 90% of them, which in our in the cases that we studied, there were 30. It decreased in 20. The urban sprawl decreased in 27 of them that had greenbelts. So overall, we can say that they were very effective, but it really depends on how we look at urban sprawl, whether it's relative to the landscape or whether it's to the number of people. So. But the overall conclusion was that they were very effective, which was the question that has been debated for so many years now.
Well, when I was reading the paper, I had some questions. I was wondering if you could go over sort of some of the terms that you use in here and things like you look at weighted urban
proliferation.
Proliferation.
Yes.
And so maybe if you could just explain some of the terms that you use and how they were used in the paper.
Yeah, sure. The method that we used is called WOOP, which stands for Weighted Urban Proliferation. And it's based on the understanding that when the built-up areas in a landscape increase and they become more dispersed, and the number of inhabitants or jobs becomes higher, the degree of urban sprawl in that landscape increases. So there are actually, based on this understanding, there are three components to urban sprawl that we studied. It's the percentage of built-up areas, the dispersion of built-up areas, and land uptake per person. So this is how we measured urban sprawl and the components that we incorporated in our measurement of it.
Okay, and where did you get the data that you used in these
well, the main data that is required for measuring urban sprawl is the amount of built-up areas in a landscape and the number of inhabitants and jobs. For Europe, most of the information for Europe is open source, so we could access them online, specifically from the European Commission website, the Eurostat databases. So it was the data was available for almost most of the cities, but there were some, because we were looking at some different years, there were some gaps in the data that we had to estimate, but the overall information was available online and open source.
Okay, so now in the study you looked at data from 2006 and 2015, which are that was the longest gap in age that you could find, right? So what were some of the major differences that you found comparing cities in 2006 to those that were in 2015?
The data that we looked at for 2006 and 2015 were the built-up areas. That's actually why we picked 2006 and 15, because it was the longest time available for the built-up areas information, actually. We saw that the built-up areas had increased from 2006 to 2015. But the increase was not very significant in the built-up area. So that was actually one of the interesting things, one of our interesting findings, that the increase or decrease in urban sprawl in the cities with greenbelts and without greenbelts were mainly due to the land uptake per person. Actually, for the cities with greenbelts, the increase in land uptake per person, the decrease actually in the land uptake per person, meaning that the area that each individual occupies on average was the most effective thing that actually led to the decreases in urban sprawl. So, so not the increases in the built-up areas actually. Yeah.
So it's really like the individual person's footprint, I guess. That was the biggest.
Yeah, that we can look at it that way. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right, and you found, and so there was also that not only were cities limited in their growth, the cities that did have green belts, they had less growth, but they showed less decrease in growth as compared to others, the cities without green belts. Sorry.
Yes, in some cities without green belts, also urban sprawl decreases. I think that's what you're referring to. Yeah, but we saw that the decrease in the cities with greenbelts was much more stronger than the cities without greenbelts. And well, the decreases, we didn't look at the cities without greenbelts, why urban sprawl decreased in them, but it was mainly, it was probably due to the other planning regulations that were in effect in those cities during the period studies, but the decreases were not as strong as the decreases in the cities with green belts.
Okay, great. And so, so you compared, you organized your cities into different categories: large, very large, medium, and smaller. So, was there one category of city that worked in which green belts were found to be more effective than others?
There was actually quite a lot of variety, but the greenbelts were somewhat more beneficial in the cities with larger population sizes, but it was not, the differences were not that strong that we can generalize it to like all the cities. But yeah, we saw a bit more effectiveness actually in the cities with larger population sizes.
Okay, great. And I think just to finish up, to conclude this, what does the study tell us, particularly us in North America, where green belts remain relatively rare in most cities, about effective urban growth management? What are some of the lessons that we can learn from this paper and apply it in our context?
We suggest the use of green belts where it's possible to and where it's applicable because of the very positive impacts that we saw they have on controlling urban sprawl, and also in the cities that already do have green belts, it's very important that we preserve them and actually apply strict regulations for constructions and avoid nibbling them away. So it's something that's very important to preserve the ones that we have, and where we can, we don't have geographical constraints, apply green belts, or at least consider this option to be evaluated.
Right. Yeah. Jochen, do you have anything to add, or?
This is all very good, she said. There are more recent discussions of having certain types of partial green belts, more whatever modern or advanced versions of green belts. So it doesn't have to be the full ring green belt necessarily. There are more modifications now, but in general, we would say a green belt is a very good option to consider, and we hope it will be used more often in North America as well now.
All right. Well, Parnian, Jochen, thank you very much for illuminating, for a very enlightening conversation. This is a fascinating article.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. That's it.
Wow.
All right.
Good.
Easy. Parnian, you were terrific. You're a natural.
Thank you.
So you guys were like so boop. Right in, you had all the answers. Really
Answering.
well.
Thank you
Straight
to
away.
everyone
Good.
who joined us. Does anyone have any questions? No?
I didn't get to show the
Okay.
That's fast, too.
It was very fast, yeah.
All right, well done. So we're going to
Cool.
go ahead, close up the Zoom. Just a reminder that we did live stream this and record it, and it will be uploaded to YouTube immediately after this. So thanks so much, everyone, and have a